Are we really discussing the possibility of Jadon Sancho going to Chelsea? At what point did a 12-year-old playing FIFA take over the transfer market? What is happening and how does this make any sense? It doesn't to me. We're going to talk about it next here on Pints and Punditry at the Pitchside Pub. We are truly in the silliest of seasons now with rumors like Jadon Sancho possibly going to Chelsea. It is Premier League opening day. The transfer window only has a couple of weeks left, and these are the rumors we're getting. And because it's Chelsea, you can't dismiss it because they are utterly ridiculous and absurd. Anytime they're linked to a player, we have to sit back and go, I guess it could happen, because at this point, we have no idea what they're doing. If this were to happen, I also have no idea what Jadon Sancho is doing. Somebody advise this kid better. I have to hope this is coming just from Chelsea's standpoint and not from his. The only real winners here would be Manchester United. We're going to break all that down here in a second, but before we do, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me down below so you can follow the channel. Get down in the comment section. Chelsea fans, do you want Jadon Sancho at this point? If you're a neutral, is this a good move for him? Get down in the comments. Let me know what you think. You can also leave some comments on Twitter at Pitchside Pub, and check out the website pitchsidepub.com. Go ahead and sign up for our free newsletter while you're there. So Jadon Sancho obviously needs to get out of Manchester United. The whole falling out with Erik ten Hag last year, and I've talked about this at length. My stance is that yes, Sancho was somewhat in the wrong, but Erik ten Hag took it way too far and was a complete bully and basically just trashed Sancho publicly and destroyed his value, which is part of why they still have him on their roster. Manchester United would love to move on from Jadon Sancho, but they don't want to take a massive loss. And I understand that, except it's their own manager who essentially destroyed the player's value. Now, he has obviously not lived up to the price tag that they purchased him from Borussia Dortmund. They paid a ton of money for him, and he's not lived up to that. And that is not really up for debate. Of course, a lot of players at Manchester United, particularly offensive players, have not lived up to the values that were paid for them because, one, Manchester United pays way too much for things, and two, Erik ten Hag has not proven to be able to get the most out of attacking players. So Sancho apparently, and Sancho and Ten Hag have, mended fences and he's back in camp, but you have to assume it's just cordial, and Ten Hag doesn't really want him there, and he's going to be somewhat down in the pecking order, behind the Rashfords, and probably even behind Garnacho, and maybe even behind Antony at this point, since Ten Hag seems to want to continue to give him more and more chances, because Antony was his guy who he pushed to bring in. So you have to wonder where the minutes are going to come from Sancho, and, even if they're being cordial, Ten Hag doesn't, seem to be particularly forgiving as a person. So, obviously, Sancho could use a fresh start. Also, Jadon Sancho needs to play. He needs to play every day. We still don't know what kind of player he is at this point. We know what he was at Dortmund, and we know what we thought he could become, which was why Manchester United paid so much for him, but we have not seen it. And at this point, we don't know if what he was at Dortmund is the best he could be. And he went back on loan in the second half of last season to Dortmund and played well. But loan spells are a really tough gauge because you're only there for a little bit of time. You got a new system, a new coach. That was not the administration that he played for when he was there. So new system, new coach. You have to get your feet wet, and then all of a sudden you're gone again. And so, while he did well, there's probably still more in Jadon Sancho. The best thing for him would be to leave United and go to a club where he can play every day. And if that's in the Premier League, that's probably in that second tier of clubs, a West Ham, a Villa, a Newcastle, if they were to get rid of somebody like Anthony Gordon, a Crystal Palace to replace, Michael Olise. Maybe even another step down if you wanted to, say somebody like Wolves to replace Pedro Neto, or, one of the mid-tier clubs. I mean, heck, Emile Smith-Rowe left Arsenal to go to Fulham. He could get tons of playing time there. I'm just throwing things out. These have not been reported, but if he could go to any other club in the Premier League and play every day, we would see exactly who Jadon Sancho is. He could also go abroad, and there have been links to PSG, which fell through. I think there were some with Juve. There's a lot of spots where he could go, but nobody wants to pay the price that Manchester United is asking for him. Well, who do you call when you need someone to massively overvalue one of your players? You call Todd Boehly and Chelsea, because they seem to be the ones willing to do that. We all thought Saudi Arabia was going to be the one to bail people out of bad contracts. Apparently, it's Chelsea. But that is the worst possible destination for Jadon Sancho. They have so many attacking players that he's never going to get to play. Cole Palmer, Raheem Sterling, Mykhailo Modric. They just signed Pedro Neto for a ton of money. And that's half the list. They have so many attacking players, he's never going to get a chance to play. So I cannot think of a worse possible spot for Jadon Sancho, and that's why I said in the intro, if this is coming from Chelsea, that's one thing, right? They've been linked to everybody. I have no idea what they're doing. It doesn't make any sense for them. I don't know why they'd spend anywhere close to what Manchester United would accept. What it would take to accept a deal for Sancho is way too much money. Chelsea has spent, frivolously. They have to be up against some PSR regulations. And even if they want to go spend another 40, 50, 60 million euros on somebody, why another winger? It doesn't make any sense. But it's Chelsea, and they're just doing this sort of thing. So at this point, I just write it off and go, well, if Chelsea's saying it, it's a possibility. But for Sancho and his camp, somebody in his camp has to be saying, no, son, do not go there. That's a worse spot for you than your current situation where you're behind 3 or 4 guys and the manager doesn't like you. You're going to be in an even worse spot. And at this point, he would get in, on the day before their first game of the season and arriving opening weekend, and then he's behind the 8 ball in terms of learning the system and playing. And he's just never going to get to play. So it doesn't make any sense. I would love to see Sancho get a fresh start. I would love to see what Jadon Sancho could be. I'd love to see him get out of the Erik ten Hag shadow and the things that were said about him there, some of which had validity, some of which did not, but none of which should have been said publicly. But I cannot think of a worse situation for Sancho than going to Chelsea, and I cannot think of one reason why Chelsea would want to make this move. I'm not even sure why they're solidifying the roster at this point. They have so many players. They're up to about 50 players on their first team, and they're trying to loan players out desperately, and yet they're still looking to bring people in. I don't know why they would be bringing in any high price tag players at this point, but nevertheless, it's Chelsea. The only winners here would be Manchester United, because they could possibly, and I assume if this does end up going through, it would only be because Chelsea's giving them close to the value that they want. So they'd be the win there because they recoup, 3/4 of what they paid for him, and at this point, that's probably a victory for them. They do not seem to have him as a part of their plans. At this point, he's depth, and he's very expensive depth. So if they could offload him for 75 cents on the dollar, or 75 quid on the pound, I don't know what the English version of that is, but if they could get 3/4 of his value for that, that'd be a win for them. So if I'm United, I'm sensing the desperation that Chelsea has, and I'm trying to take anything I can get. But from a neutral in this particular debate, I would like to see Sancho go somewhere where he's going to play, somewhere either in another league, one of the better La Liga teams, not Real Madrid. Barcelona can't afford him. Atletico Madrid probably doesn't have a spot for him now, but you could go to one of the Betis or Girona or somebody like that and play every day. Serie A has 7 or 8 good spots where he could get some time. The Bundesliga, clearly he's had success there. I'd love to see him back in the Bundesliga or one of the mid-table Premier League teams. Those would all be really good locations for Jadon Sancho to go, play every day, get back in form, recoup his value, and then we could see what he is. Because, this was 2 or 3 years ago, we thought he was one of the biggest budding superstars in world football. Not just on the England team, of which he was a part, not just in the Premier League, but on the world stage when he was, 20, 21, and he was breaking out. And it just hasn't come to fruition because he hasn't gotten the playing time. There are reports of his work ethic in training, which is what set off the Ten Hag thing. When he has gotten the chance, he has not performed particularly well. For all we know, the Premier League is above him, and he's not going to turn into the player that we hoped. Or maybe he never had a real chance because he didn't have the proper support system around him. It's hard to tell exactly what has gone wrong for Jadon Sancho, but it's not going to get right in Manchester United, and it's not going to get right at Chelsea. So I would love to see him go somewhere else, anywhere else, and play, and so we can really get a gauge for what Jadon Sancho is. I cannot believe we are talking about this rumor. I cannot believe this is even a possibility. I'd have to guess it doesn't end up happening, but once Chelsea starts thinking about spending money, anything is possible, and so at this point, nothing would shock me. I would love to get your thoughts on this. Does this make sense for Chelsea? Am I missing something? Does it make sense for Sancho? Where would you like to see him go, or should he stay at Manchester United? Get down in that comment section, let me know what you think. You can also leave comments on Twitter at PitchsidePub. While you're at it, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me down below so you can follow the channel. Check out the website, pitchsidepub.com. Thanks as always for joining us here on Pints and Punditry at the Pitchside Pub.